Check, 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 check. Hey, Rob.
Yes. Seems to work now.
Cool. Did you need to use that second link, or could you join from the invite page?
No, I didn't find from the first link. From the second link, it worked fine.
Okay. I'll put that link on the page so that if other people need it. It's interesting, because this is a recorded one. It gave me this prompt that said, "Oh, you have to invite people." I was like, "Oh."
Invite people for the video, not for the hangout.
Yeah, could be.
I mean, that makes sense. So you've been okay? I think everybody's joining. So let's take it.
Yep.
There is something like a live on it too, on the screen.
Yeah. So this should also be available. I mean, it's open to anyone, and then there's also a YouTube live video that is going to be the recording when it's all done.
Great. So let's see.
Also be available. I mean, it's open to anyone, and then there's also a YouTube live video that is. I guess the YouTube's working.
Great.
Howdy, Joe.
Hey, I was watching the video, watching you two talk to each other, but couldn't join until just now.
Did you have to use that second link, or?
Yeah, no, I went back to the Slack channel, and there was a second link, and I clicked it, and actually, so it's odd because it's just in a browser window now, not in Hangouts, which is normal. So it's not like last time anyway.
Yeah, I'm trying the Hangouts on the air thing so that way we get a recording, but it looks like the flow is just a little bit different. I guess the YouTube's working.
Great. You're going out of focus and in focus.
Yeah, the video, watching you two talk to each other, but couldn't join until just now.
Did you have to use that second link, or?
Yeah, no, I went back to the Slack channel, and there was a second link, and I clicked it, and actually, so it's.
I think you still have YouTube open there, Joe.
Who, me?
Yeah. I can hear it coming out of your speakers.
I'm trying to find the window that it has it open.
Yeah.
It's behind by quite a bit.
Hangouts on there.
Yeah, it should be. I mean, it needs processing. It's not that.
It's like deja vu. I mean, that was what he said 30 seconds ago.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I guess there's a little bit of a delay there.
Yeah, quite a bit of delay. All right, audio's okay.
I'm muted, Nick. Yeah, you sound good.
Okay, so I can get a headset, but this usually works all right.
Cool. And we should have a chat here.
Yeah, it should be right on the, yep. It looks more proper now. Let's see. Well, no, it's still in a browser window. It's still but there's a group chat. Yeah, it turns it off. Okay, and then there's a screen share and showcase. I don't know what that is. Photo capture, YouTube. All right. Anyway,
I just put the link to the notes doc in the chat. I'll be taking notes there. If other people want to throw notes in there, that's good too.
Nick is joined but muted.
Yeah, I think last time he was on in the same sort of way. He might have audio trouble.
Okay, so what's this document you just pasted into the chat?
Just notes from last time, and then it's a place to keep notes for this time.
All right, got them. Yeah, last time I don't think I sort of forgot what time it was until like half an hour into the event.
Yeah, that's all right. I think I'm going to plan on just sticking to the first Wednesday of the month at 10 Japan time. Yeah. That'll actually be the hackathon for next month as well, which is probably kind of convenient, right? So
where are we going to be on that day, though? Are we going to be in Aizu or in Tokyo?
That would be Tokyo, yeah. Aizu's after that.
Okay.
I'm not going to make Aizu, but I'll probably be there for at least that day on Tokyo.
Okay, so probably a bunch of us will be talking live, and this channel will just be the people who aren't actually present.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
So, Rob, is it raining?
What?
Is it raining?
Yeah, it was raining, but it's still you hear the river in the background.
Yeah, it's raining here now, but it just started a few minutes ago.
No, we had a lot of rain these days.
Yeah, here too. I haven't been outside hardly. Yesterday it dried out long enough it stopped raining for a few hours. The sidewalks got dry. I decided to mow, and the grass was so wet that it just clogged the lawnmower. But at least I got the grass cut. First time in 2 weeks.
I see.
You have a lawn in Japan. That's
Actually, I was mowing the park.
Oh, you're mowing the park. Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah. I have a lawn also. I have a front lawn and a back lawn. I mowed those too, but more importantly, I was trying to mow the landing zone for my drones at the park. So because the grass is too high and it won't, the propellers have an error. They look like they're jammed and won't take off.
Oh no.
So unless the grass is less than about 6 inches high, it's hard to get started.
Gotcha. Need like a little platform or something.
Yeah. If people think it's a crop circle, I mow an 11-meter circle in the middle of the park to be able to land and take off.
Great.
It looks good from the aerial photos because then you can look down and there's an obvious, bullseye.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Is Colin coming too? Or
he said he was, but he's not here yet.
And this might be pretty quick. I just want to at least go over sort of what people have in flight, either literally or figuratively, given the drone conversation.
Okay.
Cover any points that we might need to talk about, that sort of thing. Maybe let's just give folks 1 more minute and then we'll get started.
Okay. I have to say I try to follow the stuff in the API channel, but about half of it goes over my head. So not being a coder and not knowing the languages we're talking, it just it's all too modern for me.
Gotcha.
I mean, I have written programs, but they were decades ago, and long before a lot of the concepts of the web and stuff developed.
but you know what you need to get out of it, no?
Yeah. In fact, I constantly, or about once a week, I catch myself and say, I'm not going to learn to code this stuff. There are other people who are better at it. I should focus on the hardware and the high-level stuff, and let more talented people actually work on on making the software, the website and stuff work, and the API work. So I try to concentrate on keeping the big picture as to what the users of the BGEIGs and the users of the maps want, not on the nuts and bolts of how it gets done.
Okay, good. Yeah, because you know the, let's say, the liaisons between those two. You know the hardware, and you have some concept about the software.
Probably,
you know
probably better than anyone. Yeah, and I understand the limitations of general logic and computers and programming, but because I don't know web design and what the constructs and fundamental structures and stuff are in Ruby or whatever we're using online, I don't necessarily know what's easy or hard anymore. I mean, back in binary days, I knew I designed my algorithms and stuff to use binary math and use numbers that would fit in integer calculations in order to make things fast. But these days, the stuff Nick does on the tile map, the stuff that happens in the API, that's all too complicated for me to understand what parts are easy and which parts are difficult. Although I do have some definite requests for how it should change.
Yeah, I can imagine that one.
Well, the worst thing lately is the notifications. The notifications, when there's an upload, are just they're just annoying and not very useful. Those could be a lot better if we had if it could make a digest and include more information on each one. I mean, I just have 20 emails in my inbox every day, and there's no clue as to which one is has already been processed, which one or what they're related to, or who uploaded them, and whether or not I should whether or not they seem urgent. So half the time, if I click on one, somebody else probably has already processed it. So it's not going to scale as the number of BGEIGs increases, and whenever there's a holiday in Japan. I mean, we have a 3-day weekend, and on that over that weekend, there's going to be 3 times as many uploads, and it gets pretty daunting, especially when I log in, I try to log in, and they've already been processed. So
Matt, is that hard to be implemented to make let's say a special field that we can see the?
Well, if the email included a link, then my mail software would render whether or not what the status of that upload was.
Yeah, I think that would be the thing to do, is basically embed an image back to the server, so that way you can, like, the email will sort of be dynamic, assuming you're willing to let your email client load images, but I guess most of us probably are.
No, it's not an image. No. It's just me some kind of note. Matt,
sorry, you have to. One of you have to repeat that. I couldn't get it.
Matt, it's just we need some let's say note on it, not an image, because the mail software has to recognize what the status of the import is.
Well, anyway, it doesn't have to be an image, but it does have to be a link so that it's dynamic, so that when you open the mail, you see something depending on what the actual status is. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be that it changes while I'm looking at the mail. I mean, I'm willing to close it and open it again if in order to get it to look correct.
Yeah, the contents of the email aren't going to change if you close it and open it, though, right? That's what I was saying. I think what we need.
No, but yes, it might, because if it loads, let's say it loads an image, and that image is of either processed or outstanding, it's not going to change live in my render of my email client unless I refresh it.
Yeah, that's what I was getting back to. So you just said the same thing I was saying, which is we need to have some sort of an image embedded in there. It can't just be a link, because the email reader is not going to follow links necessarily, right? But if we embed it as an image in the email, then...
and then you change the image on the server?
Well, so it'll be a link back to the server that's an image representation of whether or not it's processed or not, right? So that way when you open the email, you actually see, anytime you open the email or refresh the body of the email,
right,
you'll see the current state rather than the state at time the email got sent out, right? That's really the only thing you can do. You can't modify.
How you implement it.
Yeah.
Is better.
And it shouldn't be too bad. Like I said, the only caveat is it's only going to work if your email client will allow loading of images from our server. Which, if you're using like Gmail, is true.
Set that way when I look at those mails.
Yeah.
What about adding some details? Like, one, we have a link to the. There's already a link to the upload in the mail, but if it could have some statistics about it, like, or even just what the user number was, or even better, the uploader. I don't know. It's just more information to kind of figure out whether it's urgent. A lot of them are tests. People upload them and then they delete them because they're just at the office or something.
Yeah. Is there a good way, like you said, uploader name? Is there something else we should maybe plan to include there?
I don't know. What can we get? Can we get a latitude and longitude won't do me any good, but if there was the number of points in it, the date, the date and time of the upload. Oh, here's Colin. Good.
Hey,
Hi, Colin.
hey, sorry for being late. Go on.
We were just talking about modifying the email notification that we get when there's a big ID upload, a log upload, to make it more useful. And we need to talk about some things. And one of the major requests I have for the hackathon is to go over that process and do something to make it a little more scalable. Because sort of manually doing these things one at a time now, when we're having 40 or 50 a week, is manageable. But if that goes to 500 a week, it's not going to be manageable the way it is. We need to think about some automation to either drastically reduce the time required to do this process, or some way, maybe even eliminate some of them. One of the ideas was, for instance, to, for uploads from certain users, ones with a high reputation, to just auto-approve them.
Well, I'm not sure that any kind of auto-approval will be good, but we can certainly add this kind of reputation to the list, so you can.
If we include an easy way to unapprove and remove data, then I'm not so concerned about auto-approving. Right now, we've never done that because there's no, and even so, we still have manually approved drives that need to be rescinded because we didn't look at them closely enough, and it turns out that there's a spike or something in them where the thing was put through an X-ray machine, which we prefer was not in the database.
Well, current API has no easy way to remove data. That's one problem that needs to be addressed, but it's quite difficult with the current structure.
Well, actually, I don't want to remove any data. What I want to do is when I click on the remove data point or remove drive, I'd prefer that all of those points or the point in question gets flagged somehow in the database and therefore is deprecated and doesn't come up in the main maps, and it basically becomes test data and is only available on the dirty link, as Nick calls it, and the clean database doesn't have all those, because for anti-censorship reasons, to avoid being accused of picking and choosing what we consider good, or data because it's either high radiation or low or whatever, it's better if we have another link that we can direct skeptics to say, you want to see all of our hairy, ugly tests? Click it here. Run your own filters on it and determine if there's actually anything systematic about our.
Yes, but that technically will require another database or another table or another filter, which is not implemented. And right now there is a deduplication of data at point level. So that will happen the very first thing on every upload, which means that if you upload, for example, a drive, and then you upload the same drive with some extra data added at the back of it, the first part will be ignored and the second part only will be ingested. This is how it is working, and there's no easy way around it unless we need to rewrite the whole thing. I completely agree that this is a better way, what you're describing, but I don't think it's possible with the current API.
Well, we're talking about changing the API. Or at least
okay.
That's kind of what we're here to talk about, right? Is what do we need to build into the API? I was also kind of trying to follow what Nick was trying to say on the channel.
Yeah, I'm looking at that too.
What did you say, Colin? Like, is there some technical limitation that in the way that data is used that would prohibit? I mean, like hiding data in a database is doable, right? Like putting an extra column on the measurements table such that we can mark whether or not something is hidden, and then including that at query time should be an approachable problem.
having it be binary is pretty easy. One of the suggestions we had was that the quality of the data be given some kind of a score, say from 0 to 255, and then you could sort of set a threshold dynamically. But I'm not sure how valuable that is. I mean, the data seems to either be ones that are the majority of data is approved and was done correctly, and then there's some where we turned on a vguide get the office, or in particular there's one early log file where I know that there was a huge spike in the data. I wiggled a loose wire, at least connection on the audio connection between the Geiger counter and the Arduino, and suddenly it was 10,000 CPM for 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Or 40,000. So there's this huge spike in this otherwise good drive out in Funabashi, and Nick found it, and basically that was what prompted us to create the clean database, which was that so that when people click on the main gather all 30 million data points, whatever, they don't get those. They don't have to sort them out themselves. On the other hand, being able to tell people at talks and newspaper reporters and everything else that there's another link somewhere where you can get all of it with the mistakes and errors included has been very reassuring to them that our data is valid, even though nobody actually goes and clicks on it. Because personally, I didn't even know where to find it anymore. I knew it was around at one time, but having it available somewhere and somebody could dig it out gives a lot of reassurance to people that our data is not censored with the political bias.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, there is basically two approaches to that, but it all boils down to being able to mark individual points with some kind of a label. Whether you call it the test data or something else, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
and one of the labels will be official.
Whatever, is no problem.
Cool. Yeah, and Nick said in the chat that it sounds pretty approachable. So I'm going to take that as a note, and we can.
He's already. I mean, it's already Nick. I don't know how Nick does it. I think he does it manually. I think he just has a blacklist somewhere where he adds certain things.
Yes. There is a huge query that is run.
Okay. Although I don't like the idea of him having to have a blacklist on it. It should just be in the database.
Well, it is part of the export script, and it's not a blacklist, you can see. So it uses probably more than 20 or 30 even logical expressions to filter out data that is not good. Some of that is blacklist, but most of it is like based on rate, based on people, based on lots of things. And it's an SQL query, you can see. He uses that when he exports the data for the tile maps.
It's on GitHub, Joe. It's not that complex.
Yeah, so I think it sounds like what we're looking at is we just want some way to be able to run that process or something like it, but then actually go back and instrument in the main database so that.
Well, it needs a little more thought, because if it's, like most things, doable by anyone, then somebody could flag the entire database as one way or the other, and we'd essentially lose that data. I don't know how we would get back to previous.
No. I mean, the idea is that the people who approve the data, right now they only have a choice of approve or not approve, and they only can do that at drive level.
Right.
Which, if we change that people can approve, and when I say approve, that means label it as official Safecast data.
Right, label it as valid or.
Yes. So if they label that at point level, then, I mean, we have no problem. And then the export script that Nick is using right now will be run once against the database. The data will be labeled, and from that point on, any new data will be approved by somebody, and we can actually keep in the database who approved that and what label that was sorted, so we have full auditability of the process. But we'll need another interface for that. We'll need a way to display the drive, being able to select parts of the drive, some points, or from here to here by time or by whatever map something, and say exclude that part or mark that as X.
Yeah, if nothing else, certainly a much richer UI around the approval process.
Have some vanity filters on the pre-process, the things for the moderators, then that would help with streamlining. And I mean, it's not hard. I mean, I think there should probably be a sanity filter in there that excludes all data within a 100-meter radius of the office. I mean, having a hole, having a 100-meter hole in the data around Shibuya, it would go a long ways, because almost all of the tests and bugs and stuff happen there. Okay, so unless it, and now we're talking about moving the current point cast down to Fab Cafe and actually putting it at outside the building and making it a real sensor for that area. In which case we might have to have an exception for the hole, and then anything coming from that sensor works. But that's a kind of a different problem, because we still want to be able to test sensors there, and there's still going to be a lot of test data. So that's kind of a special case, and I'm willing to throw out an entire 100-meter diameter hole around our office just to keep from having to sort those things out and delete them.
Yeah, I get the impression, rather than geographically, I mean, since everyone, or at least my understanding would be, I'm just a bGeiger user, right? So like when I upload a drive, I upload it via my account. So it seems feasible that like we should be able to have test accounts, and that basically any data points that come through these accounts are sort of known as, you probably shouldn't include this on the map in the first place.
Having a test account, so basically filtering it by the uploader.
Yeah, so like that way when you're working on like a new device and playing around with it, and you're not actually trying to get data, like real data into the map.
But that won't work in the bGeiger's case a lot of the time, because when we're doing I'm thinking about the workshops. The workshops were basically at the office, and there's multiple people building bGeigers, and the last sort of section of the workshop is, okay, switch it on, connect it to the GPS antenna, get some data, make a log file that's 30 or 40 data points long, and then now we're going to practice uploading it. And part of that is, okay, now you have to create an account, and here's how you do it. And having them do that through a test account is
what about just having one checkbox in the user interface that says the data I'm uploading right now is a test data.
Yeah.
Instead of having a separate account.
So that lets the uploader sort of give a clue to the moderator.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
That's a good idea. Yeah. You can also use the dev server for that. So
yeah.
You can just upload to there. It's
it's trying to sort out the uploading to the dev development when you're working with a new user who's never done this. I actually prefer it to be live.
Yeah.
And to me, having just having a sanity filter that removes anything that's at the office. I mean, that happens so commonly there, and 99.9% of the data collected at the location of Shibuya, of Fab Cafe, is a bGeiger or some other device that's being assembled for the first time. And the data may be valid, but we don't need it because we've got 1 million points there, and it's the office. I mean, we're going to be testing stuff. I could put a hole around my house too, but I don't have that much data.
Okay. I mean, that's just one specific case, so we can have that. But for the generic case, having the ability to flag data as being test data and still being sent to the original server is probably a better idea. The dev server is useful for testing new things which may break the real server. That's the difference.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the idea of some sort of, when you're uploading checkbox or something that allows you to be a prover.
Sorry, your audio, you cut out there for a second. Your image froze and your voice was gone. So
okay. Hello? Testing.
Yeah, now it's okay. It's back.
The idea of being able to flag it of times sounds like it'll probably give some of that functionality without upsetting the flow of the workshop. Like I proposed through account registration. This, as a text box workshop. You want to see the real data at that point.
Can you repeat it one more time, because I could hardly hear it.
Yeah, all I got was some pings and
internet trouble. I'll just throw it in the chat.
Okay.
What the heck?
Okay, moving on to the next kind of subject, or my next problem, since nobody else is bringing up something, is I have a fairly large collection of data files of bgeigie logs, and I'd say there's close to 1,000, and I've uploaded maybe 700 or maybe 3/4 of them. Actually, I don't know. I've certainly uploaded more than half and less than 90%. And the idea of trying to sort out which ones got missed. You know, the classic example for me is I come back from Fukushima. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I park the car, turn off the engine. Maybe I remember to turn off the bgeigie, and then I go in and go to sleep. And the next day I've got something else going on, and pretty soon it's been a day, pretty soon it's been a week, pretty soon I can't remember which files I've uploaded, which one I haven't. How can we address that? I mean, we've been talking about it before about changing the bgeigie to make the uploads automatic, but even so, I still have this, somewhere between 50 and 200 unuploaded log files among my 1,000 that I can't really don't have an easy way of sorting out.
Joe, I think you can filter out your own drives, no?
Say again?
You can filter out the drives that you uploaded.
Well, yeah, but how do if I've got these folders on 2 or 3 different machines, and let's say I gather them all together into a single spot, which I've been meaning to do anyway. I've got a backup folder, but then how do I know which of those files still need to be uploaded? I mean, I can look at each one and look online and see if it's there, but that's very tedious.
Well, the last time how I did it, you remember probably 3 years ago we had a similar problem.
Yeah.
What I did at that time was pull all the drives off the Amazon S3, because every time you upload a drive, the file itself is saved in Amazon S3 bucket.
Right.
That has nothing to do with the database. So what I did is I pulled all the drives from Amazon, then I got all the drives from you, then I calculated MD5 sum of each of the files, and I could easily flag the ones that were not in Amazon S3.
Ah,
so
okay. That'll work. That brought up a new problem, which I've started having, and that is that some of the files get so old, and the way the bgeigie works is it creates a file with a date that doesn't include the year. So I had a sudden trip up to Fukushima. I put the bgeigie in the car for as routine, turned it on. I get back and there's no data. And the reason there was no data is the file had the same file name, and when I finally looked, what I found was that it had appended it to the file from exactly 1 year earlier.
Oh, that's bad. That has to be addressed in the bgeigie itself.
Okay, so I've got a couple of ways to address that in the bgeigie, and we actually have addressed it a bit, where we're going to have it create the files in folders. So it creates folders with the year. So since we can't do a more than an 8-character file name, but we can create folders, and that'll fix it for the nano anyway. Maybe if we can. I mean, that's the plan. But what I did was I just opened the file in a text editor and just split it, and I manually just copied the new stuff in a new file, and uploaded it. And actually, even uploading the old file would still work, because your checksum would not match, and so it would say that file needs to be uploaded, and it'll have 14,000 data points in it, 7,000 of which are redundant and will be skipped by the upload process. So it's not terrible, but back in the first year we didn't have to worry about this. Now I actually hit a file that was 2 years old a few weeks ago. It was from July of 2013. It was still in the main folder of bgeigie 100. Yeah, and I
that will incur some additional processing when you're manually splitting the data, or when the bgeigie is being uploaded to a new file. But it's still manageable. I can look in the file and I can process files that have more than 1 year in them.
Right.
Basically, I'll have to split them. But again, I mean, if you split and you deleted one line by accident or by something else, then But still, that will have from a list of 1,000 files, that will probably flag, say, 100 or maybe 50, so which the rest you can go sort manually. So that will work. I mean, I don't remember how was the last. I was doing some backups of the S3 a long time ago. Haven't done that for a long time, but I guess Rob has or is doing that. So we should be having all the original data that's been uploaded to the database.
Okay. Well, there was also some talk about a batch upload where you could highlight, a folder instead of a file and have the API sorted out. But that's probably not real efficient because it has to essentially transfer all the files to the server and then figure out if any of them are already redundant. It might be better to have a script that I can run on my local machine.
Yep. I mean, probably you're one of the few, if not the only user that has this problem. So I think we can solve that.
Joy has this problem too. He says he's got like 50% uploads. He's got a bunch of data on his BGIG that hasn't been, and he just hasn't sorted it out.
Okay. So basically, there should be one or two. Doesn't matter how many users, as long as we can gather all the data that needs to be processed in this way, and I can process it at some point. So that's fine. I will solve that problem without the API changes.
Okay. So you do it with a script, or?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Moving on. What happened to Matt? Oh, is Matt back? I've got a still photo of him.
He left a message in the API. I was trying to get back.
I see. Yeah, he's. I've got Slack open another window, but it's out of my. It's in my very edges of my peripheral vision, so didn't notice something happened over there.
Hey folks, I might be back.
Hey.
Hey.
Is this a fork of Matt? Do we have a different actual instance?
I wish I could do that sometimes. Anyway. I just rebooted the router and everything, and now I'm back. So
it actually is a reinstallation of Matt.
I see. Rebooted Matt.
Oh, maybe I'm back.
I should start stuttering like Max Headroom from the 1980s.
Yeah. I heard they had good internet in Japan, but so far it hasn't been working out for me.
Well, depends on how you define good internet. If you mean bandwidth, yes. Latency, terrible.
Yeah, maybe I'm trying to connect to a Google server over in the U.S. or something.
Well, you're much better now than you were before, but
okay.
No, I've had trouble with lots of different things. I used to use CNN video as the test, and their Flash script or whatever, it just couldn't handle the latency. It treated it like it was low bandwidth, and it's a known problem. I spend a lot of time on sidewalks talking to internet provider salespeople. So they're talking about bandwidth and stuff, and say, "What about latency?" And they say, "Oh, maybe you should contact our technical department."
Yeah, they probably have no idea. I actually had a SoftBank Hikari salesman come to my door, even though I'd already registered and was waiting for the installation.
Yeah, and actually, I got denied one of the fiber optic services. I had ordered it. They came out to install it, and then when the installer finally wouldn't, he said we didn't have proper easement because the fiber optic had to come across the corner of the neighbor's property, and they wouldn't do it. So I'm still on. And actually, I had to bully the NTT people to put my original fiber in, going on 10 years ago now, more. So but now that they tore down the house next door and put the new house up within the actual property lines, which the other one wasn't. Now I can probably try to request a gigabit fiber in again.
Gotcha. So what I was trying to say before the internet cut me off was that the upload. Some sort of an upload flag or a test flag at upload time seems like a reasonable option to try, since it shouldn't cause too much trouble with the workshop flow.
Yeah, but it still gives. I don't think it should do anything other than it should probably be in the, if we generate, maybe it would not cause a mail to be generated in the list for the moderators.
Yeah, something like that.
But I don't want it to. I don't want the data to be, because some people might set that flag and I don't know if this is good data, and they say, or I accidentally checked it. We should have a way around that. So.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm thinking it just is like a flag. That we can use, especially like when you're reviewing, so you can say, okay, you know, this is marked as test data. Maybe I won't worry about it now.
Right, I won't look closely at it. But the thing I fear is like somebody saying, well, I'm not sure how good this data is, and it's from, you know, kind of nearby Chernobyl, or it's from Iran or Brazil, and then we still want to see that. If the data is highly from a highly desirable location, I would be willing to sort through it for, you know, to take out the half data points that were obviously wrong compared to the because.
Okay. So we'll add another flag, which will be not test data, but something else. I mean, carefully verify that. I mean, you can have many flags as you want. That was the idea. If we can sort the data in different categories, different labels, and that is recorded in the database, we can always think how to sort that later. Right. And people can, say, assign multiple labels at upload time. If they want. If they don't, it's just by default, that's it.
That's a good idea. And because the other cases that we see as moderators that are looking at the data coming in, is that people put this thing on their car or on their backpack or whatever, and they walk around for a couple of hours, and they're getting perfectly valid data, and then they see something interesting that looks like it might be radioactive, and they take the bGeigie out of its case and go hold it near it, without changing it out of log mode.
Yep.
You have 3 or 4 minutes of data that is invalid, and clearly so, because, you know, you look at the data and it's wrong. Or the other common case is that somebody, you know, is going into a museum and they stick their backpack with the bGeigie on it or in it on the belt for the X-ray machine, and the next 12 bins have 10,000 counts. So
that brings us back to being able to piecewise mark data. So we'll need definitely an interface for doing that. I mean, something like the drive being shown is, Nick had this interface at one point on the map where it shows the difference in time as a graph.
Right.
And so you can, I mean, think like an old audio editor in the old time Windows where you just scroll by time and you cut from here to here and do something. So we'll need something like that, but again, we have to be able to mark the data points inside the drive with some labels.
You know, one of the things that might be useful for doing that is just order the data by CPM. So if you look, because 0 is never valid, and so if you can just sort out all the zeros at one end and all the highest at the other ends, you're probably going to find when the tube broke or when the thing went through an X-ray machine.
Yeah. I mean, that's just how you visualize.
The thing that hasn't happened lately, but used to happen a lot, was that either the latitude or the longitude, and usually both, would be 0. In which case, we have a whole bunch of data that's off the west coast of Africa.
Yeah. So basically, we have to be looking at both the validity of the GPS and the validity of the data, so the CPM. Mm-hmm. And those two are, the way to check that is, so the CPM will be just the time graph, where you can see any jump. And the GPS will be validated by drawing a line on a map. Not points, but a line. So if you see any huge straight lines, that means the GPS got off.
Right. Okay. I don't think that's a problem lately, though.
But that will require quite a lot of work, I think.
Okay.
But the 00 should be easy to do, no?
So the next subject I have, that if anybody rejects to moving on, it may or may not be related to the API. This is one of the areas where I'm not sure where these things go on. And it has to do with I can't remember what my appointment was. I had it in mind when I was listening to Colin. I forgot. Oh dear.
Okay. Anything else? Anybody else?
I'll think of it in a second.
If we are moving on, one of the things that's been on my mind is sort of, and Rob, you might be the best person to talk to this since you've been at least making a little headway, is that the concept of multiple sensors per device. Like I think I saw you added like the device type ID, which I think we talked about as a possible solution there. Is that working for you, or is there something like that was a big topic of the conversation last call, right? Is because we have all these new devices coming up that are multi-sensor. How do we want to handle that?
Well, multi-sensor, both radiation sensors and non-radiation sensors.
Yeah.
And are those the same problem?
And also different types of non-radiation sensors as well. Either way, like basically more than one data point per sample rate coming out of a given device.
Well, a lot of the devices have a temperature sensor in them. It's because
which I don't think we're set up to handle that either, right? That's not like a thing we're doing right now. As far as the API is concerned.
It could be.
No, I mean like as far as what we have implemented right now. Like right now we're just tracking CPM. Is that?
That's right.
Like CPM and time and lat long, I guess.
Okay, I remember what I was going to talk about, so I'll try to remember again. Let me make a note so I remember.
Yeah, you put it in the doc there. Rob, I think you were trying to say something.
Yeah, I wanted to say that basically it's a measurement table. I mean, any measurement can be in there. So it can be CPM, it can be temperature, it can be humidity, and what we want.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I bring up temperature is one of the most simple, ubiquitous measurements, and if we can think of how to incorporate that, then that goes a long way to incorporating more complex things too, like I don't know, PM 2.5 density or humidity or any of the other things that are much more dynamic.
I talked a bit about the air, and I was looking at the data that Will sent a long time, 2 weeks ago probably, and I put a few comments on the documents he shared. But basically, if we want to organize everything, we will need at least 3 different layers of abstraction, where we have the data that is coming from a sensor that has an ID. This sensor is grouped in a sensor cluster that also has an ID, and those sensor clusters are grouped in a station. Because, for example, in the Safecast Air, he has temperature sensor and 2 gas sensors. And then he has another 2 gas sensors and another temperature sensor.
Right.
And those are connected to the single board that has some location. Those clusters are offset, for example, 1 meter up or down or whatever.
Right.
In order to catch all that, we need 3 different conventions, and I just call them sensor, sensor cluster, and sensor station.
Okay.
But each of those has different properties. I actually have a spreadsheet somewhere. I thought I sent it, but probably I haven't now that I think of it. That lists most of those. So when we go back to the sensor level, a sensor can give various things. It can give a single number, or it can give, for example, a spectrum as the PM 2.5 or radiation.
Right, right.
So what you have to do is basically you have to have different types of sensors, and each has its own different, how should I say, definition.
Yeah.
So
I have a lot of sensors here, which I guess we're now calling my sensor station, which is that I have, for instance, and the easiest are like things that have a single value, like the CPM on the radiation sensor, the temperature, the humidity, the CO2 concentration. The hard one there is the wind sensor, because the wind sensor is now a 2-dimensional sensor. It has both velocity and azimuth.
Direction.
Right. And actually, I have those set up specifically. So I've had them since before our Safecast, but they're a good test example in my case of simple sensors, things that are dynamic, and if we can make those work, then we're going a long way to making some of the other air sensors work too. And in fact, I think they should be able to be included, because we don't know whether or not those are going to be relevant to some of the gas sensors. I would think that having the wind speed and direction correlated with any of the air sensors would be a good thing. because if there's a sudden rise in some one of the pollutant levels, you want to know which way the wind was going at that time.
Yeah, I agree.
Why, that'll tell you why it increased. Did it increase because the wind direction changed, or did it increase because a pollutant source, recently appeared? But the other thing that happens is I don't think I'll be able to have all of my sensors connected to a single CPU. Okay, maybe I have to, and I have to get some super Arduino that can handle all of these, but probably the sensor station does not have to be limited to a single, I don't know, point cast or something. Because it would be a lot easier if I could have multiple little boxes, one that's just uploading, say, the humidity and temperature, another one that's uploading the wind speed and precipitation, and another one that's uploading, the gas concentrations from the Safecast air. They'd all have the same station number, but different cluster number.
Okay, so then we'll have to have just another layer that's called station cluster or something else, whatever you call it, that has different.
Well, we could define the station cluster to be a single CPU that has multiple sensors connected to it.
No. My idea was that when you have a cluster of sensors, they are connected all to the same CPU, basically, at the same box.
Right.
And that box has a known location, it has a known version of the firmware, it has an owner, and so on and so on. So if you want to have multiple boxes that share something, I mean, of course, they will share the owner, for example, or some location. But if you want to aggregate all those, maybe we just add another layer that is another cluster, but this time of stations, not of sensors. Well, we can use another word.
I think your terminology is good, with station being the a vicinity, meaning a house or an address or a physical location. Yes, Nick just said a station device sensor channel. Channel, meaning because like for instance, for like the Spectrum one where it's even for the right. Yeah, I agree. Although cluster is not in there, so device. I don't like device. I prefer cluster because device to me implies a certain type of sensor, like a radiation sensor or a certain kind of a model of a Geiger counter. So
no, I would say device is a machine. So basically, you can connect different clusters of sensors into that machine. But my idea is that just to have sensors like the gas sensor, which a single gas sensor has two different types of measurements. Mm-hmm. For example, it can have also lots of sensors to have raw data coming in and process data coming in from the same sensor. So we can have complex sensors, especially the gas sensors. They actually have firmware in them. So that's one thing. Then you have the cluster of those sensors, which is just a physical location. For example, we have those sensor boxes, 5 of them on a single board. They have a temperature, so you can assume that the temperature is valid for all those sensors. And then that cluster is connected to something that uploads the data. And if you want to have, I call that a station. But those terms are not fixed. But what I'm saying is that we need another super class of those when you have several of those in your house. So how we call that, I don't know, but you'll have the single owner. They may share a single internet connection. They may share a single account or whatever.
Right.
And we can correlate those, but it depends, because if you have a house, then you put one temperature sensor on the roof and one on the other side of the house and one underground. There's different meanings. So that's why I'm saying we have to be able to define the location. We have to be able to define the parameters of each of those sensor clusters compared to where the measurement is being read and sent on the internet.
Sensors, for instance, a relative humidity sensor requires temperature at the actual humidity sensor, because that you can't determine relative humidity without having a co-located temperature sensor. And I think the same is true for some of the gas sensors. That they need their own temperature, which is not necessarily the ambient temperature, just the temperature in the box where the sensor is, in order to be able to sort out its calibration.
So those will be a single sensor cluster, in my terminology.
Okay. Yeah. So if you look at my video feed now, you'll see that I'm trying to show you my wind sensor, and that's to make an example that some of the sensors are going to be maybe visual. Is there any? That sounds like a really hard problem actually to me, because trying to include a webcam or what we call what we use to sky sensors or cloud sensors that try to read out the percentage of overcast or the state of the sky is probably beyond our capability, but something we might want to think about for when for the next version of the internet.
That's fine. Nothing problematic about it. Basically, it's just a different type of data that is streamed. You still have location, you still have time, you still have owner, you still have all the metadata that comes with the sensor.
I agree.
It doesn't produce a single number, it produces a binary image, for example,
right,
that is downscaled to something. So that's fine.
Okay. Sounds like we're all in agreement.
Yeah, I think supporting the final, like the storage of the final schema is something that kind of concerns me, right? Like Nick's proposal of channel is interesting there, but at the end of the day, we have different devices that send up. Right now, we're only dealing with devices that send a single number, and what we're talking about is devices that might send multiple numbers, or devices that even send an image.
Well, they send a spectrum, or like you say, it could be a video sensor, in which case the channels becomes 256 by 256, or even 1092 by 1024. It's a lot of data per sample, but
trying to get that all into a database in a way that allows for querying or doing any sort of aggregation at the value layer is interesting. Right. Or maybe we don't need to do aggregation at the value layer. Yeah, well, that's the thing that has popped into my mind a couple of times is, do we want to run Elasticsearch in addition to Postgres? The catch with Elasticsearch is you don't want to use it as your primary data, like your only data store, because there are conditions where it will lose data. It's not always going to be a perfect representation of all the data that comes into the system, whereas Postgres has a much better shot of providing that kind of guarantee.
Well, my idea originally was route all that into syslog, back up all that syslog, and route it into Elasticsearch so you can search it.
Yeah, essentially.
And as long as you have your backup,
we could replay.
Yeah, I mean, you can always restore data, you can export parts of the data, and do whatever you want. But once you put it into syslog, so you make sure that it is backup just as a file, and then Elasticsearch will provide an interface to querying those files. That's it.
Yeah, and that's sort of what's been knocking around in my head, and sort of the thing that probably kind of scares me the most in the direction that we're headed is that, the way we have data storage architected right now sounds like it's probably not going to work in the far future of all the different, sensors and different types of sensors and things like that. So, yeah.
It's 4 years old.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Yeah, you can send data to them.
It's only 3 years old. 2.5 years old, 3 years old. This is not the original. This is not the original system.
The architecture started when we started defining the format of the big IEG in 2011, and it hasn't changed much.
That's true. Okay. Yeah, well.
We have different visualization, but the same backend, more or less.
No. Originally, we had we had a different. We've changed a lot of it since then.
Okay.
That's why the first 3.5 million data points all belong to an owner called Safecast.
So that was because the moving wasn't handled.
And because we didn't store, we didn't even keep some of the data that we now keep as fundamental.
Yep. Anyway, so, okay, I agree whether it's 3 years or even 3 years. It's already old.
Yeah, it's old. Okay.
But Colin, can we start to implement the syslog system and do that parallel with the current API so we get experience how to implement it?
Sorry, I couldn't catch that. Can you repeat?
No, that we can, now we're talking about changes in the API, but at the same time, can we start developing the syslog system so we can parallel work on it?
Yes, of course. I mean, we'll need different systems to send the data, and basically, I'm not seeing the amount of work that we need to do on the current API basically means that we have to rewrite it. It basically means we start with a new server and do everything there. And at the same time, we have to think how to migrate the data to the new server storage when we're ready with it.
Okay.
Yeah, if you have, did you send a link of like a prototype or something? I'd love to take a look at what you're thinking there.
Yeah, let's
I will.
We're just on an hour.
Yeah, I have to go right now. So I'll check the channel later and I'll send you the whatever spreadsheet I have prepared.
Cool. That'll be good.
Okay, bye for now.
Alrighty. Joe, you mentioned CP5s. Do we want to try to cover that without Alan?
CP5S is the one of the other is the other data, is related data that's in a bgeigie log file. We put there's a couple of data columns in the log file. One of them is the CPM, which is the number of ionization events in the past 60 seconds, and that's what we normally use to generate the visualizations and everything. But there's a strong desire in some cases, or just to generate it, to figure out a rule set where we would start using the CP5S data instead, especially when the counts are high. And that is one of the detriments to our collection process is that at highway speeds, or the fact that the bgeigie is moving, you're smearing the data. Let's say that there's a very focused radiation source alongside the road in one spot where somebody's done something for whatever reason, and you drive by it in 2 directions. That actually narrows its depiction on the maps, because going past it in 2 directions, it smears in one way and it adds together. But for some places, we don't have data in 2 directions. We'd prefer to, when, I don't know, maybe the rule, the process could be when it goes over a certain level, that we start using the CP5S data instead of the CPM data. For instance, in the maps I've collected, yeah, the data I've collected, say, inside Daiichi, is very small scale physically, because it's a fairly small place, and I'm going around on foot, not by car, and the levels are generally quite high and change rapidly. I mean, you can literally walk 10 steps and have 10 times the rate, and that doesn't show up sometimes because of the 1 minute smearing that we're doing. So if we can, and this is the thing Peter's asked a lot about, is that how can we sort of make the depiction more granular by choosing to use the CP5. And Peter would just like to have maps that just always use the CP5S data. But then we're looking at 99.9% of the world choosing between 1, 2, and 3 counts per bin. It's only when the levels are above, say, I don't know, 1,200 CPM total that I would want to use the CP5S data.
We can implement it in the bgeigie nano, that it goes to a certain level, it automatically goes to another mode.
No, having the bgeigie changing what the bgeigie does, I don't think is right. This is strictly a visualization thing. And Nick's got something in the log viewer. He's saying about that. Business report 100% CPS5, and it doesn't work out real. Oh yeah, I agree. He's saying that if you just display the entire map based on the CP5S, it doesn't work. It would work on some drives where none of the data is below, say, 120 or 300 and some CPM. It could work, but those almost don't exist. Even inside, Fukushima, inside Daiichi, because you start out from the RAD building where it's, ambient levels are typical for, 20, 30 CPM. You go outside and it's 60 CPM, and you walk a few paces and it's 10,000 CPM. So I don't know that there's a good solution to that, but the problem is that when you look at those maps, you look at the data and you zoom in on those places, you can't see the splotchy nature of the actual radiation field, because it's averaged over so many data points. I mean, you look at the passages through, in particular, between buildings 2 and 3, on the units 2 and 3, and the actual peak only lasts less than 5 seconds. And you can't see that. It looks like the highest radiation you've encountered is, say, 40 microsieverts an hour. I know it's 600. If you look at the 5-second data, you can see one of the bins contains the data one or two of the bins contain the data for that passage. And so the nature of that focal field is lost in our visualizations.
Gotcha. Yeah, I wasn't even aware that we were capturing. So this is clicks per 5 seconds, I guess. Then is that?
Yes, we actually the bgeigie log file contains the radiation data in 3 ways. It has the number of events in the past 12 bins, which is for 60 seconds. It has the total since a reset, and the number of clicks in the previous 5 seconds. The reason we don't use the 5-second data, which would give us much more resolution, is that it's the stochastic nature means that most of the time you're seeing, okay, this counts 1, the next counts 3, the next one's 2, then 1, then 0, and it just it's too noisy, and people get like, how can it be 3 times what it was a meter away? It wasn't 3 times higher. It's just that one by randomness had 0 or had 1 count, and this one has 3 counts. It just gets down to the granularity of the sensitivity of the sensor. But when the actual number of counts is in the 1200 CPM range or 10,000 CPM, then that you can use the 5-second data because they're varying between 100 and 105 or 110 or even 150. It is actually usable then. But I agree with Nick has tried to show that.
Yeah, I guess this gets back to something we talked a little bit in the last call around making sure that we at least have the original upload data available somewhere, which I don't know if that's the case today.
Yes, it is. But we don't have it for all of the upload data, but definitely since this, for the last 3 years, the original file that was sent in is still available, so you could download it and reparse it.
Yeah, so that's the thing I'm sort of wondering if it makes sense rather than try to make rather than try to make our full measurement table 5-second resolution, right, which is obviously going to blow out storage over time by quite a bit. What might make more sense to me is if we had some way to say, okay, for this part of the map, go grab me the high resolution data that contributed to these points.
Right.
So that way, when you're looking at something like like Daiichi that is going to be interesting and very stochastic.
Well, in particular, the reason I think it's related to the API is that when somebody puts a bgeigie through an X-ray machine, okay, that spike is all in one bin because it only lasts for a few hundred milliseconds and it's huge. And so, if there was a way to see that on the moderator's page, and we're looking at the drive, we're trying to say, is this a good one or not? We can zoom in, we can zoom out, and oftentimes we miss, because there's somebody's standing in line waiting to go into a facility, and so there's a whole bunch of data points there, and one data point in there is suddenly 10,000 times bigger than all the others. And a lot of times it's lost underneath the sea of green dots, that there's one red one under there. And if you zoom way in, you'll usually see it. But oftentimes we don't see that until somebody says, hey, there's a really big spike in Rome. And, okay, it turns out it was that one dot, and it was huge, but it was all in one bin.
Yeah, and it was in the middle of an airport security or something like that, right?
Right. It's always an extra machine. In fact, when I was in, it came up with me, I was in New Delhi, and every time you went into the hotel, you had to put your bags through the extra machine. And about half the time I forgot to turn off my bgeigie. So the end of the file contains this huge spike. It's the extra machine. I did prove that their extra machine was on, but from some of the stuff I had in my bag, they obviously were not looking at the images.
Cool.
Or they wouldn't have let me in the hotel.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I guess this feels like it ties back into the sort of approval process.
It does.
It sounds like we need some more attention paid there, so that first off you can see more easily whether or not it's been approved or not. You can see who it came from, where it came from, a list of like the high and low sensor points, and then also be able to get access to the 5-second data when you're making that approval as well.
Nick has a comment about, I don't know what the bgeigie viewer is.
Yeah, I was about to ask him.
I
got halfway through typing. Some links could be good there.
There's a link there, but I opened it and it points to a bunch of code, which is not my in my language I can understand. BCPM equals BCP5S.
So you can see the log files on the map, on the tile map.
CPM5S. Okay.
Basically what we implement.
Okay. That's yeah. Okay. Rob, repeat. So please say again.
Oh, it's in the tile map.
Yeah. I played with that some. That's a good feature. I remember although the tile map and there's a way to view things. I'll play with that some more.
And also, if you go to DataBot, it will tell you the maximum. If there's spikes, you can easily see them.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Nick, are you coming to the hackathon? I heard you were, right? Good.
Is anyone doing any sort of coordinated lodging for the hackathon? Should I just plan to get a hotel, or?
I think someone is going to do something coordinated, but I don't know who's doing it. It's probably Sean or Kiki, or if not, we should definitely work on that soon.
Cool. All right, I'll keep an eye on the channel.
Yeah. Actually, there's a new channel. Isn't there one just for the Oh no, sorry, that was for the Aoyama stuff. I was thinking of a different project that's coming up next month. We're teaching a university course, and a few of us have to coordinate on who's going to do that and when and where. Probably it'll probably be in the events channel.
All right, I'll keep an eye. Cool. I think we're good to go. We got some notes. I'll try to distill this into a couple of GitHub issues like I did last time, and
yep.
we'll keep on keeping on.
Yep. Good. Talk to you. Actually, next time, talk to you in person, right?
Seems that way.
Matt, you're coming down to Tokyo for the hackathon, right?
Up to Tokyo, yeah. Planning on it. I still need to kind of double check the logistics, but I should be able to make it.
When you asked if somebody was coordinating that, I think we need to make sure that they won't just assume that because like the thing with Eve coming to the hackathon, Sean just assumed she was Tokyo based and therefore forgot about it. And you being in Japan, he's going to think, well, you're already in Japan. Why do you what do you need a hotel room for?
Yeah. No, I'm about a 2-hour ride away, so it'd be a heck of a commute.
That's not terrible. I mean,
nah, not too bad.
Okay, and Rob, you're coming up, right? You're coming up early, or are you going to be here just for the hackathon?
We have to check. I don't know exactly the schedule, but I was planning to maybe one day before and go to ISO after.
Okay.
And ISO maybe stay a little bit longer. We're not sure yet, so we have to check.
Cool.
All right.
Well, we'll coordinate on the channel, and I'll set up another one of these hangouts, and we can plan to have it open, even if maybe most of us are in person. The people who aren't can join in as well.
Right.
Okay, good.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
I just got a message from Sean. He's apparently watching this, so he says that Kiki's helping book stuff. So.
Okay, good.
Oh, good.
Good. So we have voyeurs.
Yeah. I see one viewer, so it's.
I don't know why you didn't join. I mean,
just Sean. Cool.
Okay.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you later. Bye.